All right, good morning. We're moving on to 2.3. I'm doing the 2022 November paper. 2022 November 2 paper. I've tried to separate 1.2 and 1.1 with 2.1 and 2.2 with the 2.3. So I'm starting 3.3 in a new video. 3.2.3, it reads, read the extract below on food security. Read the extract below on food security. Read the extract below on food security. This is something also that comes under economic geography, the concept of food security. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and unpack this concept of food security before I proceed with giving you the answers. So the first thing that you need in as far as food security is concerned, the first thing is the definition. You need to know the definition is very important. Remember, this is a concept, so you need to know what it is before you even attempt reading the extract. What is food security? Is when all people have got enough food to sustain a healthy lifestyle. This is what food security is. They can assess you on this one saying, what is food insecurity? This is when not all the people have enough food to sustain a health self. So the moment you know what food security is, then it becomes easy for you to know what food insecurity is. But what is important is you need to know food security is when all the people have enough food to sustain a health lifestyle. That's what food security is. Then what are some of the factors that hinders food security? We are talking about the lack of fertile land. Talking about the lack of fertile land. Obviously, when it's not fertile, you have fertile land, which means we cannot produce more. Our agricultural production is actually affected in a negative way. So it results in food insecurity, which means we don't have enough for a healthy lifestyle. The natural disasters such as droughts, obviously, it limits the amount of rainfall that we are likely to receive during that agricultural season. So that in itself results in us having challenges in as far as the food access security is concerned as well. Then we can talk about poverty. When we do not have, that's another hindering factor in as far as food security is concerned. Then food price increases because there's a difference between affordability and access. You might have access to the food, but can you afford it? That's what differentiates the two, food access and food affordability. So that's what there can be food in the shops, but how many of us can afford? So it means we can also have food insecurity when we cannot afford due to price increases. Climate change, you can see now some areas that used to receive a lot of rainfall, they no longer receive rainfall. So that in itself is also affecting food production. Then the waste of food, land reform is not being done. Not all people have got access to land. So these are some of the things that is actually are hindering factors in as far as food security is concerned. Then also population growth. We have got more people than the available resources. So there's pressure on the available resources, which can also be a factor that result in us having that situation of food insecurity. Then subsistence farming. You are not growing crops only for yourself and your family and nothing to sell, which means there can be food security also at the level, but it cannot be at community level and even at district, national level. It can also be a challenge once we start before we start commercializing, which means we are doing it on a large scale base. Okay, then some of the measures that can actually be put in place in order to make sure that we solve the problem of food security is sustainable agriculture. Okay, obviously now we are trying by all means to make sure that we have adopt methods, modern methods that enable us to continue tilling the land, deriving as much benefit as possible. We are talking about things such as, crop rotation. Of course, we are changing crops each and every year. Like we can actually change from maize to leguminous crops. Leguminous crops, what they do what we call nitrogen fixation, like your beans, which means they also need nitrogen into the soil, which helps to help maintain the fertility of the soil. That's part of your sustainable agriculture. We can prevent erosion. Let's try that to make sure that we do not affect the characteristics, permanent damage to the characteristics of the soil in terms of its pH, in terms of its humus content, in terms of its potential hydrogen, in terms of its fertility. Okay, efficient ways of storing food. Of course, we are doing it so that at least we have got enough for the future. That's basically what we are talking about. Then we can reduce water wastage, regulate food prices so that food becomes affordable to everyone. They can easily access the food from the market where it's being sold. Support small-scale farmers. We subsidize them to make sure that they produce more. In that way, we are making sure that we counter the problems of food security. We can also, good farming techniques, of course, the good crop rotation that I was talking about, moving away from monoculture where you grow one crop year after year, okay? Drought management, of course, now there's cloud seeding. We used to have what we call environmental determinism, where we know that there are areas that are prone to droughts, then there are areas where we receive more rainfall. But now with the coming in of technology, we can easily manipulate our environment to suit whatever conditions that we want. So we are now saying we are moving away from what we call environmental determinism, where there are some certain areas that we knew that this one we could receive rainfall, but now through cloud seeding, which means there's something that we inject into the clouds so that clouds be up, then we have got water, which means in those drought prone areas we are even able to actually increase food production. There are also mechanisms that have been adopted in terms of growing what we call the drought resistant crops. Of course, they are maturing over a short period of time, needing also less rainfall. So drought resistant crops are being grown as well. So that in itself is also helping in making sure that we are food secure. Urban food gardens in the urban areas, they are also involved in farming, growing food such as vegetables. After growing, they can also sell. They are rearing cattle as well. Not animals, okay, like goats. I think you've seen that mostly in township. They can even sell those things and also derive an income, helping them to actually purchase or buy food. So that is it in as far as food security is concerned. Let's go to the question now. I just wanted you to have a brief background. According to the report released by the Statistics South Africa, measured food security in South Africa, applying the food insecurity experience scale, about 23.6% of South Africans are affected. About 23.6% of South Africans were affected by the moderate to severe food insecurity in 2021. Statistics South Africa has been working on improving its measurement of food security and recently introduced the food insecurity experience scale. Since food insecurity is a global phenomenon, it is important to measure it using them. Since it is a global phenomenon, it is important to measure it using the tools that guarantee comparability across country. Health pandemics such as COVID-19 has denied, okay? The health pandemic such as COVID-19 has denied many South Africans their right to adequate food as indicated in the South African Constitution. These years undermine the efforts that have been made to meet the National Development Plan's goals of zero hunger by 2030. So you can see zero hunger by 2030, we are talking about the Sustainable Development Goals. I'll put it that way. Okay, so we are saying now we are not able to achieve those global agendas because of food insecurity, of course. Let's go through the questions now so that we can save time as well. Define the concept food security. Remember, I said that we have to know the definition. This is when all the people have enough food to sustain a healthy lifestyle, or when nutritious food is accessible to the people of a country. That's what food security is. Okay, we have defined what percentage of South Africans experience food insecurity in 2021. You can see the answer is yes, coming from our extract, which is 23.6%. That is the correct answer there. Then what is the percentage of food insecurity? What is the importance of food insecurity experience scale according to the extract? Okay, you can see here is written, it guarantees comparability across countries. So it means to make a comparison of food security across countries. That's the importance, to make comparison of food security across country. Okay, across countries, that is the importance. That is the importance to make, of course, comparability across countries, to compare, to make comparison of food security across countries. That is the importance. You can see I have answered 3 questions already, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then suggest how health pandemics such as COVID-19 lead to food insecurity in South Africa. How do they lead to food insecurity? COVID-19, what happened during COVID-19? Of course, people were not working. The economy came to a standstill. Only the critical industries were working. So how do you best respond to that? People are unable to work, reducing food production and industry. People were not going to work. The industries at some point, they also came to a halt. They had specific hours of working. So the first thing is people were unable to work, reducing food production and industry. Due to unemployment, people could not purchase food because people were not employed. Where did they get the food? Where did they get the income to purchase the food? So that's another thing then. Then borders closed and countries could not import food. If we do not have certain types of food, which we could not import them because the borders were closed. So you need only 1 point from there. You have to understand what happened during the COVID-19. That's what you need to understand. Then 2.3.5, in a paragraph of approximately 8 lines, explain how the South African government can assist farmers in achieving the zero hunger by 2030. So you are supposed to write this in form of a paragraph. You are explaining how the South African government can assist farmers in achieving the zero hunger by 2030. There's a lot of things that you can actually do in making sure that we fight hunger, we reduce or we achieve the objectives of zero hunger by 2030. What is it that we can do? Number one, we can actually give incentives. The government can give incentives which increase productivity on farms. How do they do this? Maybe by subsidizing, maybe by making sure that the price at which some of these products are sold are viable, so that the farmers can actually increase their productivity, knowing that they are going to gain from growing certain type of crops. So incentives can increase productivity on farms. If you've seen how I'm answering the question, I'm giving a point and also qualifying. I'm making sure that I give as much information as possible in as far as paragraph questions are concerned. Do not just write in point form. Write in form of a paragraph. Your points are supposed to be well explained. I've said that the answer could be in giving incentives to farmers. But why are you giving incentive? You want to increase productivity on farms, so that obviously there is when production increases, which means we have got increased food production. That's basically what we are talking about. You can also give technical support for small-scale farmers, which will increase production. So technical support to small-scale farmers is the factor. What qualifies that factor is technical support for small-scale farmers, which will increase food production. So I've qualified that point. I've explained it in full. Then I get my 2 marks. Then providing modernized farming equipment, which will increase production. So the factor there is providing modernized farming equipment. But what does it do? What is the effect on production? It increases production, which means in our quest to make sure that we are food secure, we are using modernized farming equipment. Then this help in increasing the food production or farming production. We can encourage incentives, subsistence farmers to embrace commercial farming. We are now saying now the subsistence farmers who are growing crops for themselves and their families now, let's encourage them now to engage or to change or to upgrade into commercial farming, so that they are not only providing for their family, but they are also doing it to make money. So in that, we are solving the problem of food insecurity. Incentive for cooperative farming, which increase the variety and quantity of products. We can do research into a variety of farming practices, which actually optimize our production. We can also implement land reform programs, which should be prioritized to give more people access to land. The moment we give people access to land, obviously we are also in a way increasing production. We are also subsidizing farmers with the procurement of genetically modified products, which is the GMOs. Of course, they help also in increasing the production, and also helping in actually making sure that we are food secure. So those are some of the things that you can actually use to answer your question. But please make sure when it comes to a paragraph question, do not be vague. Try to give as much information as possible. Assume whoever is going to mark your paper doesn't know anything. You provide as much information as possible. Let's move on to the next question. 2.4. Okay, 2.4, it is referred to the infographic. Refer to the infographic on gold production in South Africa. Refer to the information on gold production in South Africa. So what is happening now this year under the primary activities or primary sector? We are doing in agriculture, we are doing sugarcane farming, and in mining, we are doing gold mining. So those are the two that you are supposed to stick to. So when it comes to mining, we are only focusing on what? On gold mining in South Africa. That's what we are focusing on. So don't find yourself doing platinum or these other minerals. You focus only on gold production. That's what we are doing this year. That's why I'm also using the 2022 paper, because on that year they focused on sugarcane and gold production. So that's why I'm using this paper, so that at least it's likely that with our prelim we are likely to have something like this. So I'm trying to spot the paper for you here. So let me say something about mining in general. What does mining involves before I just answer that question? So mining, it falls under primary activities. There is extraction of raw materials from the earth's surface. Of course, we are talking about your minerals. Before I read the extract, let me just go through mining. So what is it that you need to know? You need to know state the role or contribution of the mining. That's one thing that you need to know in as far as mining is concerned. Under this topic, you state the significance of mining in South Africa's growth. You also describe the factors that favor mining. You describe the factors that hinder or restrict mining. Identify the most important minerals in South Africa, but here to be specific, we are focusing on gold. That is the one that we are focusing on this year. You state how mining leads to environmental injustice. Of course, that's something that you also need to be aware of. I'm just going to do more like a summary. What are some of the contributions of mining to the South African economy? It contributes, about 9.5% to the GDP. It provides many jobs. What else? About 50% of South African foreign exchange is earned by mining. I'm not going to give you everything. I'm just giving you an idea so that at least you know what to expect. These are the contributions. Okay, what are some of the importance or the significance of mining? Okay, discovery of diamonds and gold, developed infrastructure of South Africa, which means we have developed infrastructure because of the gains that we have from the gold and also the diamonds that we have. It is the main driving force behind development in South Africa. There's a lot of mining that is taking place in South Africa. That is the importance. It has led to the opening of universities and educational institutions. They are doing this as corporate social responsibility, giving back to the community. So the mine, they are also building schools, they are also building universities. So this is the significance. There's a variety of minerals that are also mined. Mining resulted in huge investment in South Africa. I think we have got Anglo-American companies that are investing in the South African economy. It is because of mining. That's how important it is. And you also need to look at the factors that favors mining. What is it that favors mining in South Africa? To be specific, gold. Okay, South Africa has a wide range of minerals, large mineral reserves, lots of unskilled labor, which is also a benefit. The benefits from foreign skilled miners. Many countries invested money in our mines, among other reasons, of course. High quality of minerals. Then you also need to look at the factors that hinders mining. High underground temperatures, high cost in training of miners, mine worker strikes, among other extents in mines, among other reasons. Of course, when we look at minerals mined in South Africa, of course, we've got platinum, we've got manganese, we've got chrome, we've got diamonds, gold, we have got coal and iron ore. But the main focus for this year is gold. Do not worry about the other ones. The main focus is gold, of which our gold, you need to know gold mining areas. We need to know where most of our gold is mined. Of course, I'm talking about the Gauteng. That's where we get some of our our gold. I'm talking about in Northwest as well. We're talking about the Free State. Of course, these are some of the areas where we have got the mining of this gold. You need to have an idea. So you have to identify where gold mining takes place in South Africa. It's very important. Where does gold mining take place in South Africa? Determine and describe the trend of gold production from graphs. That's a question that you can have. You can describe the factors that favor gold mining. Describe the factors that hinder or restrict gold mining. State the role, contribution of gold mining. These are some of the things that you need to familiarize yourself with. Then from there, the factors that favors gold mining in South Africa. Raw materials, you've got huge reserves of gold. Okay, that's another factor that favors gold mining in South Africa. Labor, both skilled and unskilled, is available. Power, electricity from coal, which is our thermal. Okay, then markets, local and international infrastructure. You can see how the network blocks are networked in order to make sure the road, the rail, and the harbors. So these are the factors that actually favors gold mining in South Africa. And also you need to take in consideration what are some of the factors that hinders gold mining in South Africa. Distance from the coast. Remember, from where we are mining, like from Gauteng, we have to make sure we transport it to Durban or Cape Town, where we have got the cost, of course, so that it increases the cost of importing machinery and exporting minerals. The cost of deep level mining. When it comes to mining, we've got what we call open cast, when minerals are very close to the surface. Then we've got deep level mining, when minerals are deep underground. So we are saying now it is cost of deep level mining is very expensive. Digging deep underground. Fluctuating market price. Sometimes the prices, they changes. They can go down, they can go up. So sometimes it's in a way it also hinders gold mining in South Africa. Water, that's another problem because there is intensive use of water when it comes to mining. Okay, then electricity supply, there's intensive use of electricity as well. The cost and shortages. Remember, at some point we have got load shedding, so that's another challenge there. Pollution, water and air, visual, mine dams. You think about all those things. High temperatures make mining uncomfortable, especially underground. Then when you talk about the contribution to the economy, what are some of the contribution of mining to the economy of South Africa? It's a source of foreign income through exports. Obviously, it's a source of foreign income through exports. When we export, obviously, we are trying to generate revenue, which means we are also saying that it results in us getting foreign currency. It provides employment for about more than 500,000 people. So it's a source of employment creation. It provides raw materials to the manufacturing industry. Remember, in the primary industry, there's extraction of raw materials, and these materials are now processed in the secondary. That is through processing or manufacturing. So it's a raw material, provides raw materials to the manufacturing. Mines pay taxes to the government, which helps to develop the country. They also pay tax, companies, for operating within the different sectors, okay? Many cities have developed in the mining regions. Obviously, we have got cities development that is attributed to the discovery of minerals. We're talking of Kimberley, that is diamond. We're talking about Johannesburg, that is a discovery of gold. I think you've been to the Gold Reef City, you understand what I'm trying to say, of course, among other reasons. Then income from mining is funded the development of infrastructure in South Africa through corporate social responsibility. We are saying now this mining mines are building universities, they're building schools. So this in itself has resulted in development. So that is in general. Let's go to the question now. Refer to the infographic below based on gold production in South Africa. South Africa is the world's largest producer, was the world's largest producer of gold. Is only 50 years ago, okay? It was the large producer of gold. South Africa produced more than 100,000 tons of gold per year. Production peaked in 1970, but has since been falling steadily, sharply. Labor issues such as strike actions have also contributed to reduced gold production. The nearly 80% of fall in South African gold production has led to it being overtaken by China, which means now China is the one that is producing more, the largest producer of gold in the world, because it has overtaken South Africa, Australia, and the United States of America. So these countries have now overtaken South Africa. So from the information that we have, guys, you already been given information in as far as when was South Africa the largest producer of gold and which country has overtaken South Africa. The information is here. I'm talking about the China, your Australia, and the United States of America. Okay, you've got this that shows the tons produced per year. You can see this is information that shows the amount of gold production in South Africa. It used to be high, I think from 1960 going upwards up to 1970, where South Africa was the largest producer of gold. But from there now, there is a decrease up until now. You can see there is a decrease in terms of gold production. That's why we're saying that it has been overtaken by China, Australia, and the United States of America. But you can see from here what is happening. There was an increase. So here you are looking at the trends in terms of gold production in South Africa from this period up to this period. Here it was increasing from 1960 until 1970, but there it was the largest producer of gold. But now the trend is decreasing now up until now. Okay, then you come also to the comparison of gold production patterns. Here there's South Africa, there's China, Russia, Australia, and United States of America. There's a comparison in different years. South Africa was the largest year. Of course, there was a decrease, was still the highest contributor, but there was a decrease now from 1,000 to 600. Now it's 101, which means there's been a decrease in terms of its trend. Look at China from 100, now it's increasing. Look at Russia, there was nothing around 1970, 1990, there was an increase, 150, now it's 300. Look at Australia from 40 to 230, now 330. Look at United States of America from 50 to 300, now to 190. You can see now South Africa, of course, the one that is still the largest is China, okay, followed by Australia, then United States of America. So these are the trends in as far as gold production is concerned that you are going now to analyze in order to answer your questions. Okay, let's move at the first question. According to the graph, state the trend in South Africa gold production from 1970 to 2020. So from 1970 to 2020, you can see that it has been decreasing. It decreased from 1970 here up to 2020. It has been decreasing. Okay, so that is the answer here. It decreased. Then how many tons of gold? How many? Which means here we are interested in the quantity. We are going to get it here. Of course, the South Africa produced in 2020. Of course, this is the year 2020. It produced 101. That is your answer. So here is 101. That's what we are saying. 2.4.3. According to the table, we are still using the table. Which country was leading gold producer in 2020? Okay. We are saying now we are now comparing which one has got the largest number. Of course, it's China. So here your answer is what? Is China. That's the one that is got the largest producer of gold in 2020. That's China. State 2 physical. Okay, here is physical, not economic and not social. Factors that favor South Africa as the leading producer of gold in 1970. What are the physical factors? Okay, gold deposits are closer to the surface. That's a physical factor. Gold reserves are of higher quality. And Witwatersrand is the largest gold reef deposit. These are the physical factors. I've said that gold deposits are very closer to the surface. Gold reserves are of higher quality. These are the physical factors that you can talk about. Witwatersrand is the largest gold reef deposit. So these are some things that you can actually talk about. So you can see already you're supposed to have more information as far as gold production is concerned. You are referring now to your notes. Then in 2.4.5, state two factors, suggest two factors that resulted in the reduction in gold production from 1990 to 2020. So we are saying now, from what we are looking at, of course, the labor issues. We are now going back now to the labor issues. The strike action, obviously, it affects. It contributed to reduce gold production. This is what you're getting from the extract. So the answer is there is strike action, which means production is coming to a halt. Labor disputes, decreased foreign investment in the mines. Certain mines have had to close down permanently. Higher numbers of unskilled miners. Threat of nationalization. There is an issue of nationalization of mining. So it means most private companies, they are actually the issue of the topic of nationalization of mining is not something that is conducive for foreign investment, because most of the companies, they don't want to operate within South Africa because they feel at some point their mines will be taken away from them. So that's another threat which has actually affected production. Then power outages, load shedding, that's something else also that you need to take into consideration. Then 2.4.6, explain how a reduction in South Africa's gold production will impact negatively on the economic growth. How will this impact negatively on the economic growth? An increase in unemployment, obviously it employs a lot of people. The moment is no longer that viable. Obviously there's an increase in unemployment, which will reduce buying power. That's one thing, okay? Something that you can also have is reduced market and business profits will decrease. Less taxes paid to the government will reduce budgets for the development of infrastructure since less people will be working. Decrease in the multiplier effect in the country, resulting in all sectors of the economy being affected. Decrease in foreign income due to less gold exports causes economic recession, among other reasons. So that's how you're supposed to answer that question. Let's move on to the last one. Refer to the infographic of the Dube Trade Port Industrial Development, IDZ. The Dube Trade Export, okay, Industrial Development, that is your IDZ. Okay, this is what we are focusing on in as far as the Industrial Development Zone is concerned. Let me just give a summary of what an IDZ is. Let me just give a summary of what an IDZ is, so that at least you have an idea. So an IDZ, what is it? Okay, it is an industrial estate linked to an international sea or airport. That's what an IDZ is. It is an industrial estate linked to an international sea or airport. That's what an IDZ is. Okay, where is the Dube trade located? Obviously, you can see that Dube, if you can check, okay, what we have, the Dube. Okay, what you can say is the Dube, you can see where we have got Durban. I think we have got Dube Trade Port, 30 kilometers from Durban. It's also, we also have along the coast, of course, that is in KZN. That is in KZN to be specific, okay? It is located in the King Shaka International Airport. It is located in the King Shaka International Airport, 30 kilometers from Durban Harbour and 90 kilometers from Richards Bay Harbour in KZN. So you need to know where the IDZ is located. We have said what it is: industrial estate that is linked to an international sea or airport. Where is it located? It is located in the King Shaka International Airport, 30 kilometers from Durban Harbour and 90 kilometers from Richards Bay Harbour in KZN. So you need to identify the location of Dube Trade Port. You need to define an IDZ, what it is, state what the Dube Trade Port consists of, state some of the main developments in the IDZ, state why the IDZ was developed, describe some of the advantages of its location, and also describe the economic and the social impact. That's what you need to do. That's what I'm going to do in brief before we attempt to answer the question. Okay. So the first thing, an IDZ is an industrial estate linked to an international sea or airport. I think I've said that it is located at the King Shaka International Airport, 30 kilometers from the harbour. Okay. Then the second thing is what is the Dube Trade Port IDZ? Dube Trade Port IDZ is the only facility in Africa combining an international airport. It combines an international airport, dedicated cargo terminal, warehousing, offices, retail, hotels, and also agriculture. This is what makes up the Dube Trade IDZ. Dube Trade Port can also be regarded as a special economic zone, geographically designed areas of a country that are set aside for specifically targeted economic activities. Okay, that's basically what we are talking about. Of course, gears for export, that's what basically we are talking about, of course. Okay, then one of the 5 zones of the Dube Trade Port IDZ, we have got the Dube City, we have got the Dube Trade Zone. The Dube City, it focuses more on business and hospitality. Business on hospitality, that's what it focuses on. So it means it's more tertiary when it comes to the different economic activity taking place within the Dube Trade Zone. So you've got business and hospitality, which is part of your tertiary activities, I would say. Then Dube Trade Zone, which is more industrial, which means there's more manufacturing that is taking place there. Though there's more manufacturing that is taking place there. Then you've got the Dube Agri Zone, where there's a value addition of agricultural products. That is the Dube Agri Zone. Then we also have the Dube Cargo Terminal, where there's cargo handling. Of course, remember, this is at the coast where some of the products are shipped away from South Africa. We are also receiving at the same time. Dube eConnect, that is something to do with telecommunication, which is more specialized. I would regard it as quaternary. So you need to know the 5 zones of the Dube Trade Zone IDZ. I'm talking about your Dube City. We are talking about your Dube Trade Zone. We're talking about the Dube Agri Zone, Dube Cargo Terminal, and Guigo eConnect. What are some of the aims of the Dube Trade Port? Manufacturing of value-added products. Remember, we said that under secondary, we are manufacturing, we are processing those raw materials and processed products so that when we export them, they are of a better value. When you trade in value-added products, you are likely to have a positive balance of trade. Of course, because the value of your exports will be more than what you are importing, which is part of your expenditure. That's basically what you are talking about. It increase value-added production, which means we don't want to export products in their raw unprocessed form. We are making sure that we process them before we export so that we can actually gain economically. The reason why we have got a lot of developing countries are not gaining from international trade is because they are trading more in unprocessed raw materials, which do not fetch a higher price in the global market. So that's what we are trying to do in as far as Dube Trade Port is concerned. We are more concerned with value addition so that we are not exporting products in their raw material state, but we are manufacturing, we are processing them so that we can actually trade them in the finished form. Okay, creation of new industries, export-oriented manufacturing industries, which means, okay, if you can remember the way in which China grew their economy, it was export-led development, which means they were focusing more on exporting value-added product. This is what helped to actually grow their economy. That's the same thing that South Africa is also doing through Dube Trade Port IDZ. Then must attract foreign investment to develop and upgrade the infrastructure and provides employment. Okay, what are some of the advantages? The coastal location with 2 seaports, obviously, in terms of exporting through using the sea transport, okay, water transport, of course, the ships and things like that, and handling of different heavy bulk cargoes. King Shaka International Airport, obviously, access, because it also covers part of business and hospitality. So this also helps in a way in making sure that we grow through the tourism industry. Access to global destinations through the international airport. Hugely efficient infrastructure that links it to all the other provinces. So that's another thing that also we talk about. Then provides support services, major freight corridor between Gauteng and Durban and Richards Bay, and the 50-year master plan. Those are some of the things that you can actually think of. Then the economic and social impacts of IDZ. The economic impact, something to do with the generation of income. Earning potential increases, obviously, because there's employment creation. So the earning potential, it also increases, which in a way results in the improvement in terms of standards of living. Access to resources for these areas, of course, resources are accessed and they are also exploited for the benefit of the people of South Africa. Development of new and existing infrastructure. As these companies operating, they also need to give back to the community through improvement, upgrading infrastructure, the roads, even build university, building schools, among clinics, hospitals, among other things. Access to different markets and assist with economic upliftment, promotes local international trade, efficient transport networks to move raw materials and finished products, and employment opportunities. These are some of the economic impacts. Then what are some of the social impacts of IDZ? It creates employment, earning potential increases, buying power of local increases because they are now employed. Skills development, infrastructure development, improve the quality of life of the resident. These are some of the things that you can actually talk about in S5 as the IDZ, the Dube Trade Port, is concerned. Let's answer our question now. At least you have an idea of what an IDZ is, okay? Refer to the infographic below on the Dube Trade Port Industrial Development. It is the largest greenfield. These are the facts about Dube Trade Port. Largest greenfield airport development in South Africa, and the only one in South Africa, covering more than 3,800 hectares, which is 38 square kilometers. Located 30 kilometers from Durban, 45 kilometers away from the busiest cargo port in Africa, which is Durban Harbour. Comprise 5 business zones: the Dube Trade Zone, the Cargo Terminal, the Dube Agri Zone, the Dube City, and the Dube eConnect. I've talked about this when I was explaining. The greenfield development takes place on a vacant site that has not been developed previously. So basically, this is the information that sums up the Dube Trade Port IDZ. This is the information that sums up, and in addition to what you already have, then it becomes easier. In terms of where it's located, advertisement to attract investment industries to the Dube Trade Industrial Development. What do we have? This is where it's located. You can see along the coast, close to the coast, King Shaka International Airport, Dube Trade Port, eThekwini Municipality. You can see in terms of roads how it is linked, N2, N3, linked also. Okay, you can see the aeroplane there. This is information that is supposed to help you. What do we have? 30 minutes drive from Durban CBD, which means you can actually, it's not far from the Durban CBD. That's basically what it's suggesting here. You can see aeroplane 3.7 kilometers, the longest sea level runaway of the country. Distance from CBD 30 minutes to Umhlanga 20 minutes to Ballito 15 minutes. Okay. Direct employment opportunity. These are the benefits. Of course, people that have been employed, 16,527. One goal to move business forward, which means that's the main aim. Here, 6 years, the master plan for Dube Trade Port Development. 3,500 learners benefited from this program. Okay, what else? These are some of the benefits. Capacity to generate energy by solar panels at Dube Agri Zone. What else? From Dube to King Shaka International Airport, 3 minutes. So this information should help you to answer the question. This is more a summary of what the Dube Trade IDZ is all about. So once you have got this information, it becomes easy for you to answer the question. Let's start with the first one. What is an IDZ, Industrial Development Zone? It is focused on industrial development, a focused industrial development area that creates jobs and promotes exports close to major transport routes with international links. Of course, the simplest definition could be an industrial estate linked to an international sea or airport. That would be the simplest definition. Industrial estate, you can see industrial estate that is linked to the international and seaport and sea and airport. That's what an IDZ is, but you can say it's focused industrial development that creates jobs, promotes exports, and close to major transport routes with international links. That's what an IDZ is. That is your industrial development zone. Okay, that's the concept 2 marks. What transport infrastructure makes the IDZ unique compared to IDZs in South Africa according to the fact file? Okay, what makes it unique? Okay, we are saying what makes it different. That's what we are talking about. It is the largest greenfield airport development. This is the answer. The largest green development, it is the largest greenfield airport development. That's what makes it different from the other IDZs. That's what makes it different from the other IDZs. Okay, that's basically what you're talking about. That's what makes it different from the other IDZs. Okay, so what else do we have? Then state two factors on the map that resulted in greater accessibility of Dube Trade IDZ. Okay, what are the factors that resulted in greater accessibility? Okay, what 2 factors? 2.5.3. The harbour, that's number 1. That's what makes it more accessible. The harbour, of course, it's at the coast. Then N2, you can see we also have N3. We also have the King Shaka Airport. That's where it can be more accessible. That's basically what we're talking about. That's resulted in it being accessible because it is linked to the transport network, the harbour, the King Shaka International Airport, N2, N3. So all those things are relevant. Okay, then describe. Telling it is 2 advantages regarding infrastructure that the Dube Trade Port IDZ could offer to attract industries. Okay, what can it offer to attract industry? The Dube Trade port IDZ. So this was 2.5.4. We are saying that it's access to improve telecommunications and services. Here you can see one of them, the Dube eConnect. So the access to improve telecommunication services, available infrastructure, the roads, buildings, everything that is there. Airport provide industries with access to local international markets, access to power supply. Remember, there's a generation of solar there. There's generation of solar that is taking place there. So that's basically what we are talking about. Of course, what else? Dams ensure a balance and abundance of water. Dams ensure an abundance of water. So these are some of the things that actually regarding industries that can offer to attract industries. Of course, access to improved telecommunication services, available infrastructure. The airport provides industries with access to local and international markets, access to power supply. Dams ensure an abundance of water. So these are some of the things that you can actually write about. Okay, then explain the given reasons, obviously, how the Dube Trade Port IDZ would upskill, improve the labor in the province. How will they upskill? Okay, that is 2.5.5. Okay, a variety of industries would expose laborers to a variety of skills. There is a variety of industries that we find within the IDZ. So those industries, they can actually expose laborers to a variety of skills, which means the skills upliftment, they are able to know a lot about the different skills in as far as the industries that are located they are concerned. A variety of industry would expose laborers to a variety of skills. Okay, technical specialists from other countries would transfer skills to the local labor force. There are people that are coming, expertise that are coming from other countries. They can actually train the local people. That's what we are trying to say. Technical specialists from other and would transfer skills to the local labor force, like IT specialists, engineers, among other specialists. Local labor would acquire fourth industrial revolution skills, which would keep them abreast of the latest technological development. We are talking about them. Dube eConnect, they're learning more about IT. That's basically what we are talking about. Okay, we are living in a globalized world, so they will also learn or acquire a lot of skills. The success of the Dube Trade Port IDZ would ensure a more permanent or stable labor force. That's another thing that is of benefit in as far as the IDZ is concerned. So this has taken us to the end of our section A question 2, which is economic geography in South Africa. Of course, I've separated 2.1 and 2.2. I've done it on one video. Then on this video, I only started from 2.3 up to 2.5. So this is the 2022 paper. Boys and girls, please take this revision seriously, because most of the things that were done in 2022, we are also covering them this year. Like, for example, I've said agriculture, we are focusing on sugarcane and gold. Okay, sugarcane and gold under primary activities. That's what we are focusing on. Then IDZ, obviously, we are focusing on Dube trade, and this is what we have from this question paper. So this is very important. Go through it. You can download it. You can actually download both the memo, marking guideline, and also the question paper online. And please go through it and also listen to this video. I think it can help you in one way or the other. What is important at this point, like I'm always emphasizing, is for you to be able to interpret the question correctly, is for you to be able to be attentive to detail, because sometimes we fail not because we don't know, but it is because we fail to interpret the questions. We give an answer that is not even related to the context. Okay, so this is very important. Thank you so much.